I took an alien marriage deal, never knowing my bride was the queen of everything. Ethan had never imagined that a single decision could change his entire life. He had spent most of his 27 years drifting from one trade station to another, moving through the galaxy as a small-time human trader. While humans were respected in some circles in most of the galaxy, they were considered minor players, clever, yes, but fragile and unimportant. Aliens dominated trade, politics, and even simple survival in space. Ethan had learned early on that humans could not rely on power or fear. They survived with wit, luck, and a stubborn refusal to give up. On the station called Vyerth Prime, a place known for its immense wealth and even greater danger, Ethan was arranging the sale of rare human spices. He had managed to secure a buyer, a massive alien corporation that could easily have crushed him if he failed. The negotiation was tense, full of unfamiliar alien etiquette, strange clicking languages, and gestures Ethan barely understood. By the end, he walked away with a decent sum of credits, enough to live comfortably for a few months, though on a station like Vyerth Prime, comfort was always temporary. He was counting his earnings in a small, dimly lit corner of the marketplace when a presence made him look up. A figure approached with purpose, moving differently than the usual alien crowd. Her steps were careful, measured, almost ceremonial. She wore flowing garments that shimmered with colors Ethan had no names for. Her eyes, a deep shade of violet, seemed to peer straight through him. "You are Ethan?" the figure asked in perfect galactic standard. Her voice was calm, soft, yet carried a quiet authority that made him instinctively straighten his back. "Yes," Ethan replied, unsure how to respond to someone who looked like she walked straight out of a palace painting. "Who wants to know?" "I do," she said, her tone polite but firm. "I have an offer, one you cannot refuse." Ethan blinked. Offers that could not be refused usually ended badly for humans. He had heard stories from other traders, tricked, trapped, even enslaved. "I'm listening," he said cautiously, "but you should know I don't like surprises." "I assure you this is not a threat," she said, almost smiling. "It is an opportunity." The opportunity she presented was unusual. She wanted him to marry her. Ethan froze. He had heard of alien marriage deals before, alliances that cemented political or economic ties. But they were usually made between powerful alien houses, not humans. "I what?" he stammered. "Marry you? Who are you exactly?" "My name is Althara," she said, "and your agreement would secure benefits beyond anything a human has ever achieved. Wealth, protection, influence, all yours, you need only accept." Ethan's mind raced. He had traded for starships, rare minerals, even weapons in the past, but marriage to an alien, this was not a trade, it was a gamble on his entire future. Still, the promise of security, the kind he had never known, was tempting. "I don't even know you," he said. "How can I trust this isn't a trap?" "I would not approach you if it were a trap," she replied. Her violet eyes seemed to study him, weighing his honesty. "You have something others do not, a human's clarity. Your decisions are direct, not clouded by centuries of politics. That is why you were chosen." Ethan had never been chosen for anything of importance. The idea that someone in the galaxy had picked him for a reason other than convenience or profit was both flattering and frightening. "How immediate is this choice?" he asked, still unsure. "Tonight," she said simply. "If you refuse, the opportunity vanishes. If you accept, your life changes forever." He walked to the edge of the marketplace, looking at the stars through the transparent dome overhead. The ship streaked past in lines of brilliant light, each carrying beings far stronger, faster, and more powerful than any human. And yet one human him was offered a place beside someone of unimaginable power. Ethan thought about his life, drifting from station to station, always scraping by, always relying on luck. Perhaps this was the break he had waited for. He turned back to her. "All right. I'll do it," he said. Her eyes softened just slightly, as if approving his decision. Good, you will not regret this. The journey to her homeworld was surreal. Ethan had been on luxurious ships before, but nothing compared to the vessel that came for him. It was massive, sleek, and alive with quiet energy. It hummed in a way that made him feel simultaneously small and secure. There were no unnecessary guards. Instead, the crew moved with fluid precision, each action deliberate, almost ceremonial. During the journey, Ethan tried to learn more about Althara, but she remained distant, answering only what was necessary. "Where are we going?" he asked finally. "To my homeworld," she replied, "where your life will begin in earnest, where you will see what you are truly joining." "What am I joining?" he pressed. "You will understand soon enough," she said. Her voice was calm, but there was an edge of warning in it, as though the universe itself might be waiting for him to stumble. When the ship finally landed, Ethan was led through halls of impossible beauty. The walls glimmered as if alive, reflecting colors that changed as he moved. The floors had no seams, yet each step echoed softly. Giant windows offered views of floating gardens, levitating bridges and towers that seemed to touch the stars themselves. Ethan stopped, awed. This is incredible." "It is my home," Althara said simply, "and soon it will be yours as well. Though your role will not be what you expect, you must understand the galaxy is vast, but it is not kind to those unprepared. You will be tested." "Tested?" he asked. "Yes," she replied. "Marriage is not simply a union of two beings. It is an agreement of trust, strategy, and understanding. You will face challenges. Your mind, your heart, and your courage will all be measured. Fail, and you will not survive this world or this galaxy." Ethan felt a chill. He had thought the danger ended once he left the marketplace. Now it seemed the real test had only just begun. Yet, a strange excitement surged within him. He had spent his life surviving, and perhaps, finally, he would have the chance to truly thrive. That evening, he met her in a room filled with light that seemed to have no source. Althara was seated on a platform that glowed faintly beneath her, her posture regal. She did not smile, but Ethan could feel the weight of her presence pressing against him, not with threat but with undeniable command. "Sit," she said. He obeyed, unsure what else to do. Silence stretched between them. Ethan felt as if the air itself had changed, thick with expectation. "You are a human," she said finally, almost to herself. "And yet you have accepted a challenge that others of your kind would never dare. That is admirable." "I don't have much choice," Ethan said honestly. "Opportunity like this doesn't come twice." Althara's gaze sharpened. "Choice is always present, Ethan, but you have courage, and that is rare. It will serve you well. The galaxy is unforgiving, and yet it respects strength and clarity of mind. You have shown both." He swallowed. "And what about you? What do I need to know about you?" "You need only know that your life is about to change in ways you cannot imagine," she said. Her voice carried a mixture of pride and caution. "You will see wonders, face dangers, and meet beings that will challenge your every belief. And through it all, you must remember this. Your humanity is your greatest weapon. Do not forget it." Ethan nodded, though he did not fully understand. He had always thought of humans as small, fragile, and insignificant in the vast galaxy. And yet here he was, chosen for a purpose beyond survival, beyond trade, beyond simple life. Somehow, his simple human perspective had value in ways he could not yet comprehend. That night, as he lay in a chamber that overlooked a city of impossible towers and floating gardens, he realized the truth. His life was no longer his own. And yet, for the first time, he did not fear it. For the first time, he felt a spark of possibility. And he knew, deep down, that nothing would ever be the same again. Ethan woke to a soft, golden light streaming through the wide windows of his chamber. The room seemed alive, with colors shifting gently across walls that had no seams, no corners, only flowing surfaces that caught the light and reflected it in a way that made him feel he was floating among the stars. He rose carefully, taking in the enormity of the palace around him. Every detail, from the floating gardens visible through the windows to the shimmering floor beneath his feet, suggested wealth and sophistication beyond anything he had ever imagined. A soft chime echoed through the room, and a door opened. Ethan turned, expecting a servant or an aide, but it was Althara herself. She was dressed in flowing robes that glimmered with subtle patterns of light, her violet eyes scanning him with calm intensity. There was no pretense, no need to impress, yet everything about her commanded respect. "Good morning, Ethan," she said, her voice carrying that same quiet authority that had unsettled him the first time they met. "Today, you will begin to understand your new world." Ethan felt a flutter of nerves in his chest. "Understand my new world?" he asked. "I thought I just needed to marry you." Althara's lips curved into a faint smile. "Marriage is only the beginning. What follows is far more important. You are now part of a galaxy that has rules, hierarchies, and dangers you cannot yet imagine. Your role is not merely to exist beside me. You are to learn, observe, and one day contribute to decisions that affect millions of lives. That is the nature of your position." Ethan swallowed hard. The weight of her words sank in slowly. He had known this was no ordinary offer, but now the reality pressed down on him. He was not simply a trader who had stumbled into fortune. He was stepping into power he barely understood, into responsibilities he was not sure he could bear. "I'll do my best," he said finally, trying to sound confident even though his heart raced. Althara nodded once. "Good. That is all I ask for now. Follow me." She led him through long corridors lined with statues and intricate murals. Some depicted battles and victories, others showed scenes of diplomacy, trade, and exploration. Ethan noticed that many of the figures were humanoid, but others were entirely alien, creatures with multiple limbs, wings, or features he could not name. All of them seemed to share a common purpose, to serve or protect something greater. Finally, they reached a balcony overlooking a vast city. Towers of glass and metal stretched upward, their surfaces reflecting the light of a sun that seemed closer, brighter, somehow more vibrant than any human sun. Floating platforms moved gracefully between towers, carrying beings who walked and flew alike. The city pulsed with life, a rhythm that seemed to match Ethan's own heartbeat. "This is Althuria," she said simply, "the heart of my domain. Every choice made here reverberates through hundreds of systems. Every action, every law, every alliance is connected, and soon your choices will be connected to all of it as well." Ethan could hardly breathe. The scale of it was beyond comprehension. He had imagined power and wealth, but this was a kingdom multiplied across stars, a civilization that spanned entire planets. He realized, almost in shock, that he was not marrying a person. He was marrying a galaxy itself. Althara must have sensed his thoughts because she said, "Do not be afraid. The scale is intimidating, yes, but the key is perspective. You are human, Ethan. You see things differently. Your perspective, your simplicity, and your clarity are strengths here, even if you do not yet understand them." They moved into a chamber filled with holographic displays. Beings from across the galaxy appeared as images, each representing their homeworld, their role, and their allegiance. Ethan noticed that some images pulsed, some changed color, and others simply stood still. Althara gestured toward the displays. "These are my advisors, generals, and envoys," she explained. "They report to me, but they also listen. All are skilled, experienced, and highly capable. Yet there is one thing they lack, and it is why I chose you. They cannot see what you can see. You have the ability to think outside the confines of centuries of tradition. That is rare, and it is valuable." Ethan tried to absorb her words. He had spent years navigating alien trade, learning to understand customs, interpreting strange languages, and surviving situations that would have destroyed most humans. He had learned to rely on observation, empathy, and quick thinking. Could that really be a strength in a galaxy governed by empires, fleets, and powerful beings? Althara's calm assurance suggested it could. Will I be expected to make decisions? He asked. Eventually, she replied. For now, you will observe. Watch how decisions are made. Learn who trusts whom, who fears whom, and who is capable of what. You will also learn the cost of choices, the weight of authority. Nothing here is trivial. Nothing is simple. And yet, humans often find solutions where others cannot, because they are not blinded by tradition or fear. Ethan nodded slowly. He had spent most of his life fighting to survive, never commanding armies or governing worlds. The idea was overwhelming, but there was also a spark of excitement. Finally, his skills might matter in ways he had never imagined. Althara led him to a training hall, but it was unlike any hall he had seen. There were no weapons scattered, no machines, only spaces filled with energy that seemed to react to movement and thought. She explained that humans often learned best by action, by trying and failing, rather than simply watching or reading. You will face challenges here, she said. Some tests of intellect, some of character, and some of courage. Do not be afraid to fail. Failure is a teacher, and it is often the fastest way to understand what is truly important. The first test was simple in concept, but difficult in execution. Ethan was asked to negotiate a hypothetical dispute between two alien civilizations. One was a species of towering, crystal-skinned beings who valued logic above all else. The other was a fluid, shape-shifting species that prized emotion and instinct. Ethan had to mediate a disagreement over the control of a critical resource, and he was given only minutes to reach a solution. He approached it with a mixture of logic and human intuition. He listened carefully to each side, asking questions they had not considered. He suggested compromises that were unconventional but fair, blending the crystal being's need for structure with the shapeshifter's desire for freedom. At first, the holographic advisors shook their heads, clearly doubting a human could succeed. But as Ethan spoke, they realized the solution worked. Both sides agreed, and the simulation ended successfully. Althara observed silently, her expression unreadable. When Ethan finished, she said, "Well done. You have proven something important. Humans can be decisive and wise even in situations that seem impossible. Remember this lesson. It will serve you well." Over the next several hours, Ethan was introduced to more aspects of Althara's domain. He learned about the intricate systems that managed resources across planets, the communication networks connecting thousands of worlds, and the fleets that ensured peace, or enforced it when necessary. He saw the vast complexity of life under Althara's rule, and it humbled him. A single misstep could ripple across the galaxy, creating chaos or destruction. Despite the weight of responsibility, Ethan began to feel a strange confidence. The challenges were immense, yes, but he could see ways to contribute. Humans, he realized, were adaptable. They could think in ways alien species might never consider. While he was small, fragile, and untrained in combat, he had one advantage: perspective. And in a galaxy that relied heavily on tradition, perspective could be a powerful weapon. As evening approached, Althara invited him to a balcony overlooking the city again. The sun was setting, casting brilliant streaks of orange and purple across the sky. Floating platforms glided through the air, carrying beings who worked, played, and traveled. The sheer scale of it took Ethan's breath away. "Do you understand now why you were chosen?" she asked. "I think so," Ethan said. "You need someone who sees differently, someone who can navigate problems in ways your advisors cannot, someone human." Althara nodded. "Exactly. Your humanity is not a weakness. It is a strength. Never forget it. You will need it, for the challenges ahead are only beginning." Ethan felt a mix of awe and fear. He had accepted a deal that seemed simple at first, but now he understood. He had stepped into a world far larger, far more complex, and far more dangerous than anything he had known. And yet, For the first time in his life, he felt that he belonged somewhere. As night fell over the city of Althuria, Ethan sat quietly, absorbing everything he had learned. He understood that he was no longer just a human trader. He was part of a galaxy-spanning empire, connected to lives, decisions, and responsibilities beyond imagining. The challenges ahead were immense, but he also realized something else. He had the ability to make a difference. And with that thought, he finally allowed himself to sleep, knowing that the next day would bring even greater trials, deeper revelations, and the chance to prove that humanity had a place among the stars. Ethan awoke to the soft hum of the palace. He had slept better than he had in years, yet a sense of anticipation filled him. Today, he was to face his first real test. He had been told that marriage in Althara's world was more than a union of hearts. It was a union of responsibility, judgment, and trust. The Queen had made it clear that he would be tested in ways few humans could comprehend. When he arrived in the training chamber, Althara was waiting. Her violet eyes held a quiet intensity, and her presence alone seemed to command the space around her. "Good morning," she said. "Today you will learn not through observation but through action." Ethan nodded. He had learned from the first day that in Althuria, hesitation could be costly. "You will be presented with a conflict," Althara continued. "It is not a simple dispute. It involves the lives, resources, and trust of multiple civilizations. You must mediate it, succeed, and you will prove that humans have a unique perspective worth valuing. Fail, and the consequences will teach a lesson you may never forget." Ethan swallowed, feeling the weight of her words. He had faced negotiations before, but never with stakes that affected entire species. The chamber shifted, and a holographic representation of two alien civilizations appeared before him. One was the Kryn, a species of crystalline beings, their bodies tall and angular, with voices that sounded like singing metal. They valued logic, rules, and precision. The other was the Velari, fluid-shaping beings who shifted colors and forms with every movement. They lived by instinct, emotion, and adaptability. The conflict was over control of a planet rich in resources. Both claimed it as essential to their survival. Ethan took a deep breath. He could feel the simulation reacting to his presence, observing not just what he said but how he thought. He began by listening. "What is most important to each of you?" he asked, addressing the holograms as if they were real beings. The Kryn spoke in calm, measured tones, emphasizing fairness, contracts, and rules. The Velari shifted rapidly, expressing fear, hope, and survival instinct. Ethan noticed that neither truly understood the other. They were trapped by their own perspectives. He proposed an unusual solution, a shared governance system. The Kryn would oversee production and structure, ensuring that rules were followed and resources were managed efficiently. The Velari would manage distribution and community needs, ensuring emotional and instinctive concerns were addressed. Ethan added a rotational leadership program where both species would periodically have decision-making control. The holographic advisors whispered among themselves. Some shook their heads. Humans rarely suggested compromises that could satisfy both sides without favoring one. Ethan pressed on. "If we combine logic and instinct, rules and adaptability, both species gain security and freedom. Conflict is avoided, resources are preserved, and trust can grow over time. Each side must learn the other's perspective, but neither loses its identity." A long silence followed. Then slowly both holograms nodded. The simulation concluded. Ethan had succeeded. Althara's voice broke the silence. "Impressive. You see solutions where others see only conflict. That is the essence of human thought, creativity, adaptability, and empathy combined. Remember this, Ethan. Your perspective is your power." Ethan exhaled, relief washing over him. He had passed the first test, yet he knew this was only the beginning. Over the next several days, Ethan faced a series of increasingly complex challenges. He learned to interpret alien politics, predict economic fluctuations, and negotiate alliances. Each test built on the last, and each time he succeeded, Althara's subtle nod was the only acknowledgement he received. One evening, as he rested in his chamber, he realized how much he had changed. His mind was sharper, his instincts keener, and his understanding of alien cultures far deeper than when he had arrived. He began to see patterns, connections, and consequences that most humans, or even most aliens, might overlook. Althara appeared at his doorway. "You are adapting well," she said, "but the galaxy will not always be patient. Soon, you will face decisions with no clear answers. You will be tested not only for intellect but for courage, compassion, and integrity." Ethan nodded. "I understand." "Good," she said. "Tomorrow you will see what I mean." The next morning he was transported to a distant colony, one recently caught in conflict between rival factions. Civilians had suffered, and both sides were suspicious, unwilling to negotiate. Ethan realized this was not a simulation. These were real lives at stake. He observed quietly, listening to the fears and concerns of the leaders. One faction feared loss of autonomy, the other feared starvation and collapse. Ethan understood that a solution required more than rules or logic. It required trust, which could not be commanded, only earned. He began speaking to both sides, using patience, empathy, and straightforward reasoning. He acknowledged their fears, offered compromises, and suggested joint projects that would benefit both factions. Slowly, suspicion gave way to cooperation. A fragile agreement was formed. The queen watched silently. Her presence felt even when she did not speak. Ethan felt a strange pride. He had relied on his humanity, the ability to understand, to empathize, and to see opportunities for cooperation that others overlooked. As the day ended, he returned to the palace. Althara met him on the balcony overlooking the city of Althuria. "You have done well," she said. "You have proven that humans can offer something unique to the galaxy, something others cannot. This is only the beginning, Ethan. The galaxy will test you in ways you cannot yet imagine." Ethan looked out at the floating towers and glowing gardens, thinking of the colony he had helped stabilize. "I think I understand now," he said. "It's not about strength or size. It's about perspective and action. About using what you have to make a difference." Althara's violet eyes softened just slightly. "Exactly. And humans, despite their fragility, have an advantage. They are adaptable, creative, and fearless in ways many cannot understand. Do not underestimate your worth, Ethan. You may be human, but that does not make you small. It makes you formidable in ways few expect." Over the next weeks, Ethan continued to grow under Althara's guidance. He met ambassadors from distant worlds, each with agendas and interests he had never encountered. He learned to navigate delicate political landscapes, discovering that small acts of understanding could prevent disasters far larger than a single human could imagine. One day, while reviewing a conflict report, he realized something remarkable. The humans he had once thought insignificant were now being respected. Alien factions were beginning to consult him, not just as Althara's consort, but as a thinker in his own right. His ideas, grounded in human reasoning and empathy, were changing decisions, saving colonies, and even preventing wars. Althara noticed this shift. She invited him to a private chamber, one filled with holographic maps of the galaxy, showing trade routes, military positions, and population centers. "Ethan," she said, "you have proven your value. You see connections and solutions that others overlook. That is why humans are important. That is why you are important." Ethan looked at the sprawling galaxy laid out before him. "I never imagined humans could have this kind of influence," he said. "I always thought we were small, fragile, and insignificant." "You were small in the beginning," Althara said, "but you have grown. Your experiences, your choices, and your perspective have made you more than just human. You are a bridge. You connect worlds, ideas, and beings in ways that matter. Never forget that. Ethan felt a swell of pride, tempered by humility. He was beginning to understand that being human in this galaxy was not a weakness. It was a strength. And he had the opportunity to prove it, not just to Althara, but to the entire galaxy. As the sun set over Althuria, Ethan stood beside the Queen on the balcony, looking out at the stars. He realized that the tests, the challenges, and the responsibilities were far from over. The galaxy was vast, unpredictable, and often dangerous. But for the first time, he felt ready to face it. He had discovered something vital. Courage was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite it. Ingenuity was not about machines or weapons, but about seeing possibilities where others saw walls. And humanity, his own unique perspective, was the most powerful tool he had ever possessed. Althara's hand rested lightly on his shoulder. You are learning, Ethan, and that is why you will endure. Remember, every choice matters. Every action has consequences. But with clarity, courage, and empathy, even a single human can change the course of worlds. Ethan nodded. I understand, and I won't forget. That night, as he lay in his chamber, Ethan thought about the lives he had touched, the conflicts he had resolved, and the challenges that still awaited. He felt a sense of purpose he had never known. He was no longer a drifting trader. He was a participant in something far greater, something that required him to think, act, and grow in ways he had never imagined. And deep down, he knew that this was only the beginning of a journey that would test everything he was, and everything he could become. The sun was rising over Althuria, casting soft golden light across the floating towers and shimmering gardens. Ethan stood on the balcony of the Queen's palace, watching the city awaken. The hum of energy, the glide of platforms, and the distant chatter of alien voices filled the air. He had grown comfortable with the scale of Althuria, yet today there was a tension he could not ignore. Althara had called for him early, her voice calm but urgent. You will need to focus today, she said, her violet eyes fixed on him. A threat has emerged, one that may destabilize several systems. Your role will be critical. Ethan felt a chill. He had expected challenges, simulations, and tests, but the gravity in her voice suggested real danger. What kind of threat? He asked. Althara's expression remained neutral. A rebellion, a coalition of systems who believe humans should never hold influence in galactic affairs. They are strong, organized, and dangerous. They seek to disrupt peace, and they will not hesitate to strike at the heart of my domain. Ethan swallowed. This was unlike any test he had faced before. This was real. Lives, entire civilizations, and the stability of the galaxy were at stake. She led him to the command chamber, a vast space filled with holographic star maps, tactical displays, and fleets poised for action. Generals and envoys from various systems were present, each discussing strategy and contingency plans. Ethan felt their scrutiny immediately. Many of them looked at him with doubt, clearly questioning why a human, barely known in galactic politics, was standing among them. Althara spoke. Ethan has insight that you do not. He brings a human perspective which has proven valuable before. I ask that you trust his judgment in the coming operations. A murmur ran through the room. Skepticism was natural. Ethan had never commanded fleets, negotiated treaties at this scale, or handled crises that spanned multiple star systems. But he took a deep breath, reminding himself that human ingenuity was his strongest weapon. The rebellion had begun its strike subtly but effectively. Supply routes were disrupted, small colonies attacked, and propaganda spread rapidly. The rebels hoped to fracture alliances and turn neutral systems against Althara. Ethan quickly identified the strategy. They aimed to exploit fear and mistrust. Their attacks were designed to confuse, distract, and destabilize. He proposed a counter-strategy that startled the council. "We cannot fight them head-on," he said. "Their strength is in perception and fear. We need to outthink them, not overpower them. We will use human-style tactics, deception, misdirection, and selective alliances. We will turn their own strategy against them." Some generals scoffed. "Humans, deception, against fleets trained for centuries," one of them asked. Ethan remained calm. "Yes. You underestimate us because you think like them. We will strike where they do not expect, create alliances where they see enemies, and protect key systems by making the rebellion believe they are advancing, when in truth they are walking into controlled situations. Speed, intelligence, and adaptability will be our strength." Althara watched silently, her expression unreadable. Finally, she said, "Proceed. Ethan, you lead the strategy. I will support where necessary, but this is your operation." Ethan felt a surge of responsibility. He was nervous, yes, but he also felt ready. This was his chance to prove that humans could make a difference on a galactic scale. The first phase involved misdirection. Small fleets were sent to appear as though they were retreating, drawing rebel forces into positions where the human-led strategy could isolate and neutralize them. Communications were carefully managed, using subtle psychological tactics to create confusion among rebel leaders. Ethan coordinated with alien generals, explaining each move and the reasoning behind it. Slowly, skepticism began to fade as the early results confirmed his predictions. Rebel skirmishes were neutralized with minimal losses, and key colonies remained secure. The council watched in growing astonishment. Next, he turned to alliances. Several neutral systems had been on the verge of siding with the rebels. Ethan proposed a combination of incentives, protection, trade advantages, and promises of shared governance for local decisions. These offers were simple, human in approach, yet effective. Within hours, several neutral systems pledged loyalty, tipping the balance of power. One evening, as he reviewed reports, a new threat emerged. A rebel fleet, larger and faster than anticipated, had targeted a critical supply hub. Conventional strategy would have involved direct confrontation, a bloody battle with uncertain outcomes. Ethan thought carefully. He devised an unconventional solution. Using stealth ships and decoy transmissions, the fleet was lured into a trap where smaller, highly mobile human-led squads intercepted key vessels, while the main fleet remained hidden until the rebels were exhausted and disorganized. It was risky, but it worked. The supply hub was protected, and the rebels suffered losses far beyond expectations. Althara observed the operation from the command chamber. She finally spoke, her voice carrying pride. "You are demonstrating exactly what I hoped for. Humans can see beyond conventional thinking, finding solutions that others overlook. Your ingenuity is changing the course of this conflict." Ethan realized something extraordinary. His human perspective, intuition, empathy, adaptability, was not just useful, it was revolutionary. Alien generals had relied on centuries of tradition, tactics, and rigid rules. A single human, using creativity and observation, was shifting the balance of power. Over the following days, the rebellion escalated, striking at multiple locations simultaneously. Ethan coordinated countermeasures, assigning human-led squads to areas where unconventional thinking was needed most. Each intervention minimized loss of life while neutralizing rebel efforts efficiently. Colonies that might have fallen were stabilized, and news of his success spread quietly through the galaxy. Yet the operation was not without risk. One rebel faction attempted a bold strike on Althuria itself, hoping to capture the palace. Ethan had anticipated this possibility and prepared contingency measures. Defensive shields, rapid response fleets, and carefully timed evacuations were coordinated. When the rebels arrived, they found themselves trapped, unable to breach the defenses and cut off from reinforcements. Within hours, the threat was neutralized. Althara approached Ethan after the battle, her expression serious. "You have done more than I imagined. You have saved not only lives but also the stability of countless systems. Your methods are unorthodox but effective. This is the human advantage." Ethan felt a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. He had faced fears, managed crises, and led fleets, all beyond what he had ever thought possible. Yet he understood that the galaxy was far from safe. Every victory was temporary, every calm potentially deceptive. That night he walked through the gardens of the palace, reflecting on the events. Alien life, with all its technology and power, often relied on rules, hierarchy, and tradition. Humans, by contrast, thrived on creativity, intuition, and collaboration. His small human perspective had become a vital tool in a galaxy that underestimated it. Althara joined him silently. They walked side by side, her presence comforting yet commanding. "You have proven much," she said. "But remember, the galaxy is vast and unpredictable. Today's victories do not guarantee tomorrow's safety. You must continue to think, adapt, and act." Ethan nodded. "I understand, and I will. Humans have survived not because we are strongest, but because we learn, adapt, and persevere. That is what I bring here." She paused, looking out over the city. "It is more than that. You inspire trust, you create solutions, and you see possibilities others overlook. That is a rare gift. It is why you were chosen, and it is why the galaxy will remember you." For the first time, Ethan felt the weight of his responsibility in full. He was no longer simply a human trader. He was a leader, a strategist, and a symbol of what humans could achieve. His actions had consequences beyond comprehension, yet he was ready to meet them. The next days were filled with coordination, planning, and strategic discussions. Ethan worked tirelessly, balancing diplomacy, military operations, and logistical challenges. Each decision required careful thought, yet he relied on his human instincts, observation skills, and empathy. Slowly, the alien advisors who had doubted him began to respect him. His insights were practical, effective, and often unexpected. One morning, a messenger arrived with news of a rebel colony attempting to flee the Alliance. Without hesitation, Ethan devised a plan to intercept the colony, offering them safe passage, trade incentives, and a voice in local governance. By appealing to their interests and fears, he secured their loyalty without a single battle. Althara observed from the command chamber, clearly impressed. "You are changing the way humans are perceived," she said. "Your actions prove that courage, intelligence, and empathy can be as powerful as fleets and weapons. The galaxy will not forget this." Ethan felt a quiet satisfaction. He had spent his life surviving, thinking small and avoiding danger. Now he was shaping the future of entire civilizations. The Queen's confidence in him was not misplaced. He was discovering the true strength of humanity. As the sun set once more over Althuria, Ethan and Althara stood together, watching the city glow beneath them. The rebellion was weakening, alien systems were stabilizing, and the influence of humans was growing. Ethan realized that this was more than survival or success. This was a turning point. Humans, once considered minor players, were proving their worth through ingenuity, courage, and perspective. And he, a single human, had become a symbol of what was possible. Althara's voice broke his thoughts. "You have done well, Ethan. But remember, the galaxy is never still. Challenges will always arise. Trust yourself, trust your perspective, and continue to act. That is how humans will endure and thrive." Ethan nodded, understanding the truth in her words. The future was uncertain, the threats many, but he was ready. He had faced fear, adversity, and impossible odds, and he had succeeded. And now he knew that humanity had a place among the stars, not as followers, not as minor players, but as innovators, leaders, and vital participants in shaping the galaxy's destiny. As night fell over Althuria, Ethan felt a quiet resolve. He would continue to learn, adapt, and act. He would prove, not just to Althara or the galaxy, but to himself, that humans could rise above expectation. And he knew that the next phase of challenges would come, testing everything he had learned. But for now, he stood beside the Queen, confident in his purpose, and ready for whatever the galaxy would demand. The galaxy had changed since Ethan had first arrived on Althuria. What had started as a single, uncertain human stepping into an alien marriage deal had become a story of courage, ingenuity, and influence that no one had anticipated. The rebellion had been contained, thanks in large part to his unconventional strategies and human perspective. But Ethan knew the true test had yet to come. The galaxy was vast, unpredictable, and threats never truly ended. Althara summoned him early one morning. Her violet eyes were sharp, alert, yet calm. "Ethan," she said, "you have proven yourself in countless ways, but now comes the final test. It is not simply strategy or diplomacy. It is judgment, courage, and the ability to inspire trust in others. The stakes could not be higher." Ethan listened carefully, feeling the familiar mixture of fear and excitement. He had faced simulations, rebellions, and crises, but Althara's words suggested that what lay ahead was different. Lives, entire worlds, and the future stability of the galaxy rested on his decisions. "Where do we begin?" he asked. Althara gestured toward a holographic map. "The rebellion's remnants have fled to the edge of known space. They are rallying allies, hoping to return stronger. You must decide how to address this. Your actions will determine whether peace endures or chaos spreads." Ethan studied the map carefully. The rebel factions were scattered, each holding strategic positions, and rumors indicated that they were acquiring support from systems previously neutral. A direct confrontation would be costly, possibly sparking widespread war. He needed a solution that relied on strategy, intelligence, and the unique perspective humans could offer. "I think we can achieve this without large-scale battles," he said. "We'll combine diplomacy, targeted interventions, and human-style ingenuity. First, we secure the neutral systems by offering protection, trade benefits, and involvement in local governance. Then we isolate the rebel factions, making them believe they are stronger than they are while cutting off support and supplies." Althara nodded. "Proceed. Your judgment has been sound thus far. I trust it now more than ever." Ethan immediately set to work. He communicated with neutral systems, presenting clear, simple proposals that appealed to their interests. He emphasized safety, prosperity, and autonomy, making humans' involvement appear as partnership rather than domination. Slowly, systems that might have joined the rebels pledged loyalty, tipping the balance in favor of Althara's domain. Next, he focused on the rebels themselves. Using intelligence reports, he identified weak points in their alliances and logistical networks. He organized human-led squads to subtly disrupt communications, block supply routes, and intercept critical movements. Each action was precise, minimal in force but maximum in effect. The rebels, confident in their supposed strength, were caught off guard at every turn. One evening, a high-ranking rebel commander attempted a bold strike on a frontier colony. Ethan had anticipated this and orchestrated a response that relied on speed, misdirection, and intelligence rather than brute force. Human squads, supported by minimal fleet deployments, intercepted the commander's forces, neutralizing the threat while preserving civilian lives. Althara observed these operations from the command chamber. "Your strategies are remarkable," she said quietly. "Humans are underestimated because they are small and seemingly fragile. Yet you prove that clarity, creativity, and empathy can outmatch even the most seasoned adversaries." Ethan realized she was right. Alien factions often relied on rules, tradition, and power. Humans relied on observation, intuition, and adaptability. He had begun to understand that his perspective was not only useful, it was revolutionary. The final phase of the operation required a personal journey. The largest rebel fleet, led by a cunning strategist, had taken refuge near an uncharted system. Confronting them directly would be a massive battle with unpredictable casualties. Instead, Ethan proposed a human approach: negotiation, trust building, and demonstration of strength through intelligence and compassion rather than sheer force. Althara agreed. You will meet the commander personally. Convince them to surrender or negotiate peace. This is a test of diplomacy, courage, and vision. Ethan prepared for the encounter. He studied the commander's movements, history, and motivations. He anticipated skepticism, hostility, and manipulation. Yet he reminded himself that humanity had survived for millennia not because of physical strength, but because humans could understand, adapt, and act in ways others could not. The meeting took place on a neutral station. Ethan stepped forward, accompanied by a small human delegation. The rebel commander, a tall being with dark, angular armor, glared at him. "A human," the commander sneered. "Do you truly believe you can influence the galaxy?" Ethan met the commander's gaze without fear. "I am not here to threaten," he said calmly. "I am here to offer solutions. You want to secure your people resources and future. I can help you achieve that without unnecessary bloodshed. All I ask is trust and a willingness to see beyond fear and pride." The commander laughed, but there was curiosity behind the laughter. "And why should I trust a human? Your kind is weak, insignificant, and far from the power required to command respect." Ethan smiled faintly. "Weak, perhaps. But humans have survived, thrived, and innovated in the harshest conditions imaginable. We see opportunities where others see walls, and we act where others hesitate. Trust me, I offer more than strength. I offer perspective, clarity, and a chance for your people to prosper safely." Hours passed. Ethan listened, questioned, and spoke. He demonstrated understanding of the commander's fears, proposed practical solutions, and highlighted benefits of cooperation over conflict. Slowly, the commander began to consider his words. The tension in the room eased as logic, compassion, and human ingenuity prevailed over pride and hostility. Finally, the commander nodded. "Very well," he said. "We will consider your proposal. But understand this, one mistake and we return to war." Ethan nodded. "Agreed. And you will see that peace is stronger than conflict when handled wisely." The rebellion's last major threat had been neutralized. Colonies were stabilized, neutral systems aligned, and rebel factions integrated into governance structures with oversight and support. Ethan's strategies had preserved lives, strengthened alliances, and demonstrated the unique value humans could bring to the galaxy. Returning to Althura, Ethan felt exhaustion and relief in equal measure. Althara greeted him on the palace balcony, overlooking the city bathed in the light of a setting sun. "You have done it," she said softly. "Not through power alone, not through force, but through insight, courage, and humanity. You have proven that humans are indispensable, that they can change the course of worlds." Ethan looked out at the glowing towers, the floating gardens, and the bustling platforms. He thought of the countless lives affected by his actions, the colonies saved, and the fragile peace restored. "I never imagined humans could have this much influence," he said. "I always thought we were small, fragile, and overlooked." Althara's violet eyes softened. "That is precisely why you are remarkable. Others see weakness. You see opportunity. Others see chaos. You see possibility. You have shown that humanity is not only capable but essential in a galaxy that underestimates them." Over the following days, Ethan's reputation spread throughout Althura and beyond. Alien factions that once doubted humans began to respect them. Humans became symbols of adaptability, creativity, and integrity. And Ethan, a single human who had arrived uncertain and inexperienced, had become the living proof of this truth. Althara and Ethan stood together in the palace gardens one evening. The city glimmered beneath them, the stars above reflecting on pools of water and metallic surfaces. "Ethan," she said, "you have not only proven yourself, but you have also strengthened the bonds between worlds, forged peace, and demonstrated what humans are capable of. This is your legacy." Ethan felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had entered this journey uncertain, facing trials that could have overwhelmed him. Yet, through courage, observation, and the uniquely human ability to adapt, he had succeeded beyond imagination. He had become more than a consort or advisor. He had become a symbol of hope and possibility. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for trusting me, guiding me, and showing me that humans can matter in ways I never imagined." Althara smiled faintly. "No, Ethan, thank you. You have reminded the galaxy that power is not measured only in fleets or technology, but in vision, empathy, and courage. You have changed everything." As night fell, Ethan looked out at Althuria and the galaxy beyond. The rebellion had ended, peace had been restored, and humans had proven their worth. Yet he knew this was not the end. Challenges would always arise, threats would appear, and the galaxy would continue to test all who lived among the stars. But for the first time, Ethan felt ready for whatever came next. He had discovered something vital. Strength is not always in might, but in insight. Leadership is not always in command, but in understanding. And humanity, in its resilience, ingenuity, and compassion, had a place among the stars that no one could deny. Althara joined him in silence, their presence together a quiet statement of unity. The galaxy stretched out before them, full of uncertainty, danger, and opportunity. And for the first time, Ethan realized that he was not just part of the galaxy, he was a force within it. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the journey and the possibilities ahead. And with Althara by his side, he knew that humans, small and fragile though they might seem, could achieve greatness that would be remembered for generations. The stars shimmered above Althuria, and Ethan understood this truth completely. He had taken an alien marriage deal without knowing the full extent of what he had agreed to. And in doing so, he had become the bridge between species, a human who changed the course of the galaxy forever.